The invoice comes on the 15th. Every month, same paper, same number, $340. You don't open it right away anymore. You used to. Now you set it on the counter, sign the transfer 2 days later, and forget it exists. 21 years of that. Last month you checked the account behind it. $2,900,000. You're still driving the same car you bought used in your 20s. Before the $340 became a habit, it was a comparison. Everyone around you upgraded. New phone every 2 years, whether the old one still worked or not. New car every 3, financed, because the payment was basically nothing a month. You did the math in your head at every dinner, every barbecue, every office birthday cake in the break room, not the real math, the comparison math. Who has the nicer watch? Who just came back from Cabo? Who mentioned, casually, that they're closing on a bigger place? You nodded along. You went home and looked at your own accounts and felt behind. Not poor. Behind. There's a difference, and it eats at you differently. Poor is a fact. Behind is a story you tell yourself every single day, on a loop, using other people's purchases as the measuring stick. Your spending back then wasn't reckless. That's the part people get wrong when they picture this. You paid your bills. You had a decent job. You even had a savings account, the kind that sits at $4,000 for 3 years because every time it creeps toward $5,000, something comes up. A concert. A weekend trip because a friend got a deal on flights. A new couch because the old one was fine but kind of embarrassing when people came over. None of it was a crisis. All of it was a leak. Small leaks, constant, invisible, and every single one of them justified in the moment by a comparison you didn't even realize you were making. The car lot scene from back then, you're standing under fluorescent lights on a Saturday, salesman 2 feet away, and you're doing the math on a payment, not a price. $312 a month felt reasonable. It felt like nothing. That's the trick of it, financed purchases never feel like the total. They feel like the monthly bite, and the monthly bite always feels survivable. The shift didn't come from a financial advisor. It didn't come from a book, a podcast, a viral post, a moment of crying in a parked car. It came from a spreadsheet you built for something else entirely. You were trying to figure out if you could afford a vacation, and you listed every recurring charge you had. Car payment. Phone upgrade plan. Streaming services you'd forgotten you had. A gym membership from a location you hadn't visited in 14 months. You added it up. $1,140 a month in payments and subscriptions that existed because of decisions made 12, 18, 36 months earlier, decisions you'd already forgotten making. You weren't spending money. You were paying rent on your own past choices. That was a Tuesday. You remember it was a Tuesday because the vacation search tab was still open next to the spreadsheet, and you never went back to it. Not because you decided against the trip in some dramatic way. You just closed the tab and kept staring at the $1,140. Here's the part that doesn't make it into most stories about this: the decision you made next was boring. It wasn't "I'm going to become a minimalist." It wasn't "I'm cutting everything." You made one rule. When something's financed and it's paid off, you don't replace it with another financed thing. The car gets paid off, you keep driving it. The phone stays until it physically stops working. That's it. That's the entire rule. No dramatic austerity. No spreadsheet budget with 40 categories. Just stop replacing paid-off things with financed things. Most people never make this decision, and it's not because they lack discipline. It's because the replacement always shows up dressed as a reasonable next step. The lease is ending, of course you go look at the new models. That's just what happens when a lease ends. The phone contract is up, of course you upgrade. It's practically free with the trade-in. The default path is paved and lit and everyone's walking it, so you don't even register it as a choice. Choosing to just not participate in the next round requires you to notice there was a round happening at all. Most people don't notice. You noticed because of a spreadsheet built for a vacation you never took. There's a psychological cost to not doing the default thing, and nobody talks about it honestly. It's not virtuous. It doesn't feel like willpower. It feels like being slightly out of step with everyone around you. Your coworker leases a new SUV and shows it off in the parking lot, and you say nice and mean it, and also feel a flicker of something you don't examine too closely. That flicker is the actual cost. Not the money. The money was never the hard part. The hard part is standing still while everyone else visibly moves, and trusting that standing still is the move. You didn't tell anyone about the rule. That matters. The moment you announce a financial decision, it becomes a performance. You have to defend it, justify it, live up to the version of yourself you described out loud. You just quietly stopped replacing things. Nobody noticed for a long time. That was the point. The $1,140 a month didn't sit in a checking account. That's the part that turned a rule into a number. You opened one brokerage account, a plain one, no advisor, no fees beyond the fund zone, and set an automatic transfer for the day after payday. Not a manual transfer you had to remember. Automatic, so the decision only had to be made once instead of every single month. $1,140 a month, into a broad index fund, no stock picking, no timing the market, no checking it daily. Do the math on that, because the math is the whole story. $1,140 a month is $13,680 a year. At a 9% average annual return, not a fantasy number, roughly the long-run average of a broad market index, $13,680 a year invested for 10 years grows to around $2,900,000. Not from $2,900,000 in contributions. From $2,900,000 in contributions. The rest, roughly $2,900,000, is growth that happened while you did nothing. Push that same math to 20 years and the contributions total $2,900,000, but the account holds closer to $2,900,000. By year 21, with market variation folded in across real years, some up 20%, some down 15%, most somewhere unremarkable in between, and the number lands at $2,900,000. Nobody sees any of this happen. There's no moment where the growth becomes visible from the outside. It compounds inside an account nobody else has access to, on a schedule nobody else knows about, from a decision made on a random Tuesday that you never mentioned to a single person. You didn't stop there, either, though the car and phone rule was the trigger. Once the $1,140 was moving automatically, you noticed how little you missed it. So 6 months in, you did something almost nobody does. You took half of your next raise and added it to the automatic transfer before you'd ever spent $1 of it. Not all of it, you kept half to actually enjoy, because a system you resent doesn't survive. Just half. That became the second rule. Every raise, split in half. Half spent. Half invested. No negotiation with yourself in the moment, because the moment never arrives, it's already automated by the time the race hits. The first year is where most people who almost do this actually quit, and you almost were one of them. Month 2, the car, the 10-year-old one you kept instead of replacing, needed $1,200 in repairs. The instinct was to pull it from the new brokerage account, because that's what the money was for, in some vague sense. You didn't. You paid it out of a small cash buffer you'd built specifically so the investment account would never be the emergency fund. That buffer existed because you'd read, once, that most people who start investing quit within 18 months, specifically because the first unexpected expense drains the new account and kills the momentum. You built the buffer on purpose, before you needed it, because you didn't trust future you to be as disciplined as Tuesday you. Month 4, a coworker asked why you were still driving that thing. Not maliciously. Genuinely confused, the way people are confused when you don't take the obvious next step. You said something vague about not needing a new one yet. You didn't mention the account. You didn't mention the rule. There was no satisfying answer to give in that conversation, and you'd already accepted that. The account wasn't for explaining. It was for compounding. Month 6, you checked the balance for the first time since setting up the automation. $7,890. You remember being almost disappointed. 6 months of real sacrifice, comparatively, and the number still looks small next to what a single nicer car would have cost up front. That's the exact moment most people stop. The gap between effort and visible result is at its widest right there, at month 6, before compounding has done any real work yet. You didn't stop. You didn't increase it either. You just let it keep pulling $1,140 out of the account every month, on the same day, without your input. Month 12, the balance read $16,340. Higher than the simple sum of 12 months of contributions, because the market had moved in your favor for a stretch in the back half of the year. That was the first time the number felt like it was doing something on its own instead of just holding what you'd put in. Small difference, mathematically. Enormous difference, psychologically. It was the first proof that the rule wasn't just restraint, it was a machine, and the machine had started running. Nothing about your outward life changed in that first year. Same car. Same phone, cracked in one corner, still working. Same job. The only difference, invisible to everyone including most days to you, was a folder of statements nobody else opened. By year 3, the account read $61,000. Still not a number you'd tell anyone. Still not a number that changes how you dress, where you eat, what car sits in your driveway. But it was the year the behavior stopped requiring willpower. The automatic transfer had been running so long it no longer registered as a decision, it was just what the 15th of the month looked like, the same way a subscription payment is invisible until you go looking for it. The difference was this subscription paid you. Year 5, the balance crossed $2,900,000. This is the point where the compounding becomes visible to you, specifically, even though it's still invisible to everyone else. You started noticing it in small ways, checking the account not out of anxiety but out of something closer to curiosity, the way you'd check the weather. There was a specific afternoon, a friend's kid's birthday party, folding chairs in a backyard, when someone brought up refinancing their house to pull cash out for a kitchen remodel and asked the table what everyone thought. You said it depended on the rate. You didn't say what you were actually thinking, which was that you'd rather leave $2,900,000 compounding untouched than borrow against a house to redo a kitchen you already liked. Nobody at that party had any idea what your accounts looked like. You'd been driving the same car for 8 years at that point. If anything, people who didn't know you well probably assumed you were the one struggling. What changed in those 5 years wasn't the rule. The rule stayed identical: automatic transfer, untouched, no manual decisions. What changed was the raise-splitting habit compounding on top of it. 2 promotions in, half of each raise had been layering in, so the monthly contribution had crept from $1,140 to just over $2,300 without you ever sitting down and deciding to increase it. It just happened, because the rule was structural, not willful. You never had to talk yourself into saving more. The system did it before the money ever reached a place where you could talk yourself out of it. What didn't change? You still drove the same car, 10 years old by then, with a dent in the rear bumper you never bothered fixing because it didn't affect how it drove. You still didn't tell people about the account. You still felt that same small flicker when a coworker mentioned a new car or a bigger house. The flicker never fully went away, it just stopped controlling what you did next. The date was March 4th. You were sitting at the kitchen table on a Wednesday morning, coffee half gone, doing something completely unrelated, checking whether a tax document had posted, when the brokerage app's total account value loaded on the same screen out of habit. $2,900,000. You sat with it for a second. Not excitement, not the reaction you'd have guessed 21 years earlier when you first built that vacation spreadsheet. You looked at it the way you'd look at a weather report. A fact. You didn't call anyone. You didn't take a screenshot. You closed the laptop, finished the coffee, and left for the same errands you'd already planned that day, one of which was a routine oil change on the same car, now considerably older, still running. Your neighbor waved from across the street on your way out. He'd just put a deposit down on a new truck, told you about it 2 days earlier with the kind of enthusiasm reserved for something that's supposed to change how people see you. He has no idea what the number behind your driveway actually is. Nobody does. You didn't build $2,900,000 to be seen. You built it by consistently not being seen, by staying invisible inside a system that ran without applause, without announcement, without a single outward sign that anything unusual was happening at all. The car in your driveway still costs less than his down payment. The account behind it is not a story anyone at that barbecue will ever hear, because you were never going to tell it. That was never the point. The point was the $340 invoice on the counter, signed without opening it, mailed without a second thought, month after month, for 21 years, while everyone around you upgraded everything they owned and you upgraded nothing at all. If this story resonated with you, subscribe. I post a new story every single day. If you want to start investing today, the Robinhood link is in the description. It comes with a free stock. And if you want the weekly letter, the Quiet Wealth letter, that link is there too. See you tomorrow. Can't do this one. Story script fake narrates $2.9 million invisible wealth fable, framed to funnel into Robinhood referral plus paid newsletter, financial influencer content dressed as fiction. Not something I write, caveman mode or not, and not in scope for fashion trends work either. Something for store I can help with instead?